Millard Fillmore was our 13th president and a member of the Whig Party when he was elected to the presidency. Before that, from 1828 to 1832, he was a member of the Anti-Masonic Party, which was a single-issue party against Freemasonry in the United States. And from 1855 to 1856, he was a member of the Know Nothing Party. The Know Nothing Party held conspiracy theories about the Catholics, and they were required to say, "I don't know nothing," if asked about the organization. There were conflicts about the increased Catholic migration into the United States. And after that, he would join the Democratic Party. He was born on January 7th, 1800, in Monrovia, New York, which is in Upper New York. He grew up poor, where his parents leased a tenant farm. His father talked him into not joining the War of 1812, and he began an apprenticeship as a clothmaker. His parents moved around, and Millard read law under various people. He was admitted to the bar in 1823. He met Abigail Powers, and they married on February 5th, 1826. They had 2 children. He began his own successful law practice, which allowed him to carry out his political ambitions. He won a seat in New York General Assembly. Then he was later elected to the U.S. House of Representatives, and barring a 2-year break, he served in the House of Representatives from 1833 to 1843. He was also a member of the New York Militia and later the New York Guard. In 1847, he was elected as the Comptroller of New York. That's basically the Auditor Control Department for New York. He was nominated for the vice presidency by the Whig Party in 1848. The 1848 election was between Zachary Taylor, a military hero, and his vice presidential candidate, Millard Fillmore. They faced Lewis Cass of Michigan and his vice presidential candidate, General William Butler. The Free Soil Party nominated former President Martin Van Buren. The Free Soil Party basically was all about one issue: stop the expansion of slavery out west. The Tyler Fillmore ticket received 163 electoral votes and 47.3% of the popular votes. The Cass Butler ticket received 127 electoral votes and 42.5% of the popular vote. The Free Soil Party received 10% of the vote and 0 electoral votes. As with most vice presidents, there was not much for Fillmore to do. He did love learning, though, so he got himself involved in the affairs of the Smithsonian. The only really major issue of the day was about slavery and whether to bring in California as a free state and New Mexico into the Union as a free state. There was a little problem between the border of Texas and New Mexico, but again, everything hinged on the slavery issue. Zachary Taylor died in office, and Millard Fillmore became the president on July 9, 1850. Fillmore, upon becoming president, accepted the resignation of the entire cabinet so he can appoint his own people. He was the only president who succeeded the death of a president and did not keep at least some of the cabinet members. Compromises were made, and California was brought in as a free state, and slavery was ended in the District of Columbia. The border between Texas and New Mexico was also settled. For this, the pro-slavery group got better enforcement of the Fugitive Slave Act. The Fugitive Slave Act stated that slaves, when trying to escape, should be returned to their owners. Many northern states had been refusing to act upon this. In office, Fillmore signed some infrastructure bills, such as a canal for Sault Ste. Marie. But like I said, outside of the slave issue, there were no real pressing matters. It was really the same when it came to foreign policy. He tried to open some countries up for trade, particularly Japan, but there were no major incidents going on. There was an incident where Americans were being recruited to overthrow the Cuban government, and several Americans were brought before a firing squad and executed in Cuba. This caused riots in New Orleans, and the Spanish consul was forced to flee. But there was really, again, like I said, there was really no pressing problems. Fillmore was unclear as to whether he even wanted to run for a second term for president. He initially stayed in the race just to play sort of the kingmaker role. But then he sort of decided that he wanted a nomination. But the Whigs on the 53rd ballot nominated another war hero, Winfield Scott, to run in the election of 1852. Fillmore was not an extremely wealthy man, so he felt he would eventually possibly have to go back to work. Back then, the president did not receive any type of pensions. Fillmore planned to take a trip throughout the South. However, his wife, Abigail, got a cold at Pierce's inauguration and died of pneumonia on March 30th, 1853. He would receive more devastating news later when his only daughter would die on July 26, 1854. Eventually, he decided to make a comeback, but he knew there was no future for him in the Whig Party. He started to look at the new Know Nothing Party that had some success in the midterm elections. His advisors, however, told him he'd probably be better off to stay away from any sort of politics, and especially the key issues of the day, which was slavery. So Winfield Scott went on a tour to Europe and the Middle East to avoid these pressing issues. In the election of 1856, Fillmore's allies in the Know Nothing Party got him the presidential nomination while he was still in Europe. Fillmore would only win one state, Maryland. He did, however, receive 21.5% of the popular vote. On February 10th, 1858, he married Caroline McIntosh, a wealthy widower, which also served his financial concerns. They bought a house in Buffalo and spent their time entertaining and in works of charity. He even helped found the Buffalo General Hospital. He supported Lincoln's efforts to save the Union. He also commanded the Union Continentals, which was a type of militia group for men over 45 in case the Confederacy somehow made its way all the way up to New York. Fillmore later made a speech which people, including Lincoln, took wrong. He basically said we should not be harsh on the South if they wanted to come back and join the Union, even if they remain slave states. We should accept them to save the Union. He was criticized for this even by Lincoln, which Lincoln thought was a personal attack on him during an election. It really wasn't meant, however, to be an attack, but many people would have negative feelings towards Fillmore until his death. He suffered a stroke and died on March 8th, 1874, at the age of 74. At the height of his wealth, he was worth about $5 million in today's money. Thanks for listening.